The industry has changed. It's changed. It's not funny, but it's quite funny because when they were waving, oh, they're better, they're this, they're that, but now all of them are on YouTube. All of them are on Patreon. We've been did that over here. Pictured me on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. She was the main one that was hating. They got this blogger lady just everywhere, and now Kandi is a blogger lady.
And that was the moment the internet stopped scrolling. Because when Tasha K said the blogger lady is now the blogger lady on YouTube, she wasn't cracking jokes, she was drawing a line. A line between who Kandi used to be and who she's become. What started as shade quickly turned into something darker. Because underneath the laughter, the sarcasm, and the slick one-liners, Tasha was making a claim that cut deep. That Kandi Burruss didn't just leave television. She ran to YouTube. Not to evolve, but to survive. And suddenly, viewers weren't hearing comedy anymore. They were hearing warning shots. Because if what Tasha was saying was true, then this wasn't about entertainment. It was about relevance, desperation, and a celebrity scrambling to stay in control while the engine that built her career was losing power. In seconds, the comment section detonated. Was Kandi really copying everyone? Was YouTube her new lifeline? Was Patreon her last card? And then, Tasha pressed play on a clip that no one was ready to hear. A clip that didn't just embarrass Kandi. It redefined her marriage. And right there, Todd Tucker stopped being a husband and became collateral damage.
You know, for you to sit on your podcast, knowing you got young children, you got children that are watching this and you want to brag about being almost damn near 50, help make up for your short husband in every way, she gonna blame it and say that Todd set up this whole...
The live didn't feel like another rant. It felt like a controlled detonation. When Tasha K leaned into the camera and fired that first line, timelines didn't just react, they snapped. Not because it was loud, not because it was messy, but because it sounded deliberate. According to viewers, this wasn't sarcasm. It was accusation wrapped in humor. And it landed like a court document disguised as comedy. In her framing, this wasn't a career transition. It was a survival move. The story she was telling wasn't about YouTube. It was about collapse. And in that collapse, one name kept echoing through the chat feed. Kandi Burruss. By the time the first wave of comments flooded in laughing emojis colliding with outrage, Tasha wasn't entertaining anymore. She was prosecuting an image built on television, protected by legacy, secured by applause, and allegedly, cracking. The live stream felt less like a broadcast and more like a warning flare, shot straight into the night sky of celebrity culture. Then, Tasha shifted gears. The jokes disappeared. The tone hardened. And that's when she went for the identity.
We on the same level now. Except I've been doing this a lot longer than her. I said, you see how they be coming out here? I started doing skits, she doing skits. I don't care what y'all go back and say. This one here don't have no identity. Kandi does everything everybody else does. I have never seen anything original from her, except...
Kandi does exactly what everybody else does. I've never seen nothing original from her, except her voice. And that ain't even good to me. The room changed after that. Not because of the words, but because of how confidently they were delivered. This wasn't shade. According to supporters, this was an execution. Tasha wasn't questioning whether Kandi had influenced the space. She was questioning whether Kandi was the space anymore. And then came the pivot. Tasha didn't stay on surface-level critique. She didn't debate metrics. She didn't quote algorithm theory. She attacked center mass. Not the career. The marriage. But she didn't do it directly. First, she reached into the one place no image is protected. The bedroom. A clip loaded. A smile appeared on Kandi's face. And according to Tasha, the truth didn't come out bitter. It came out cheerful, playful, unbothered. The words in the clip allegedly suggested that after decades in the spotlight, the private life had gone public. And the public wasn't ready. What viewers thought would be gossip sounded like evidence. A confession delivered casually as if nothing sacred was being revealed. And that's what shook viewers. Not that it happened, but that it was said like it didn't matter. And Tasha pounced.
First 230 said threesomes never work. That's not true. I done had a threesome and it worked just fine.
Would you think that stepping outside the threesome?
Hell yeah, that's cheating.
Okay, so
That's
you
what I
answered the
said.
question.
Like-
She said without telling him. Meaning he's not
yeah.
knowledgeable
Sis,
that she going to get a
you
little
cheating.
shit turned up.
Okay, sis, you cheating.
Right, thank you.
That wasn't commentary. That was a verdict. And it hit home because it wasn't graphic. It was moral. In one sentence, Tasha reframed the narrative. This wasn't about open-minded. It was about conflict between consent and secrecy. And suddenly, the entire marriage felt unstable, not as a rumor, but as a system under strain. The clip replayed, and viewers didn't hear fun anymore. They heard fracture lines. They heard tension dressed as laughter. They heard a house trying to hold itself together with vibes and denial. And the audience leaned forward, because Tasha wasn't done. Then came the bombshell. Not whispered, not teased, dropped. According to Tasha, Todd Tucker wasn't living in a marriage anymore. He was living inside a triangle. Not a metaphorical one, a literal one. She claimed there was a third presence between the two. A woman who didn't hover at the edges of the story, but walked straight through the center of it. A woman who wasn't passing through, but allegedly staying. Not rumor, not theory, but according to Tasha, routine, trips, family presence, and a title suspiciously heavier than girlfriend. Tasha didn't just say the word. She redefined it. Wife. Not legally, functionally. A word that landed like a brick. Because it suggested something more dangerous than scandal. It suggested system failure. According to the framing, this wasn't a crack in the marriage. It was a redesign. And Todd didn't get a vote. Then the live stream went silent for half a second. And Tasha turned on him. Not cruelly. Clinically. She painted him as a man no longer fighting. Just existing. A partner swallowing contradictions. Rules written in someone else's handwriting. A husband caught inside a spotlight not his own, blinking in a marriage that didn't feel like home anymore. She didn't say he was weak. She implied he was exhausted. The internet read between the lines. Then came the bigger accusation. Not about love. Not about sex. Not about loyalty. About image. Because Tasha wasn't saying Kandi lost herself in passion. She was saying Kandi lost herself in performance. That her personal life became promotional content. That intimacy became marketing. And marital tension became clickable. And now, revenue strategy. She accused Kandi of turning every dimension of her life into an offering. Voice, face, marital status, bedroom, all converted into content, and script, and headlines, and monthly subscription, and what once felt like access, now looked like exposure. Tasha said it plainly. If the cameras didn't sell it, Patreon would, and if television wouldn't touch it, YouTube would, and if privacy resisted, monetization would break it. And in that framing, the divorce stopped looking emotional. It started looking inevitable, not dramatic, logical. Then she reached the trigger. The line that cut through the commentary and became prophecy. Todd, according to Tasha, was done. Not angry. Resigned. A man no longer negotiating. Just quietly ejecting. From a marriage he didn't recognize. From a home that didn't feel private. From a spotlight that swallowed him whole. Tasha didn't say he was leaving. She said he was already gone. Spiritually. Emotionally. Functionally. And the stream ignited. Not because of what was said, but because of how closely it matched what fans already felt. Long before it was spoken. Then Tasha leaned in. Eyes sharp. Voice lowered. And delivered the closing blow. She didn't threaten. She warned. That this wasn't the fallout. This was the beginning. That losing a husband would not be the finish line. It would be the first domino. Because when your life becomes content, it doesn't stop collapsing at the door of your marriage. It keeps going. Reputation. Legacy. Influence. Silence. Everything. And the final line cut the sound from the room. Not with volume. With finality. She told Kandi she didn't fall. She didn't descend. She crawled for clicks. And somewhere between her first laptop and her last broadcast, she misplaced her real self. And now, the audience was watching. Not a scandal, but a slow unraveling. And if Tasha was right, the divorce wasn't the ending. It was the opening scene. By the time the first live stream ended, viewers weren't arguing over whether Tasha K was too much. They were arguing over one word. Wife. Not legally. Not publicly. But functionally. Because according to what Tasha alleged next, the arrangement inside Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker's home wasn't a rumor. It was routine. And once that word entered the room, the narrative shifted from messy celebrity marriage to something far colder. This wasn't infidelity. This was infrastructure. According to Tasha, this wasn't a fling, a side story, or a late-night secret. It was a system. A third person operating inside their family life. Not in the shadows. Not hidden away, but allegedly. In the cars. On the planes. In family photos. On trips. Around the children. And if it was true, then this wasn't just betrayal. It was replacement. The live stream chat started moving too fast to read. Users weren't commenting. They were reacting. Because something about the way Tasha delivered it felt less like scandal. And more like disclosure. And then she said it. Flat. Unapologetic. Not as a tease. Not as a maybe. As a statement.
Okay.
It don't happen that often.
It's not
Has
often.
it happened in the past 6 months? Yes.
Oh, well, wait. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, they travel together. They pay for trips together, whenever they go on trips. Her relationship with Bolo, I'm gonna interview Bolo. I'm glad he told her the truth. You need real friends like that. But yeah, but this is their girlfriend wife. They take care of her. She goes everywhere together.
No pause. No hesitation. No laugh track. Just nerve. Because once you say kids, this stops being adult business. This becomes family business. And the word wife wasn't a joke anymore. It was a structure. A silent architecture built inside a marriage. And now the audience began rewatching Real Housewives scenes differently. Every group trip. Every smiling dinner. Every side hug. Every third body in a shot. People weren't asking who it was. They were asking, how long has this been here? Then Tasha added the detail that changed everything. It wasn't just presence. It was access, control, intimacy, routine. Not someone passing through the house. Someone living inside the space. According to Tasha's framing, this woman didn't orbit the marriage. She moved through it, which meant Todd Tucker wasn't dealing with rumors. He was sharing oxygen. And then the live stream went quiet in a different way. Not shock, calculation. Because now viewers weren't watching gossip anymore. They were watching a marriage being reconstructed in public. Then Tasha turned her attention to Todd. And the tone shifted. She didn't mock him. She didn't ridicule him. She described him as someone who stopped fighting, not because he agreed, but because he couldn't stop it. It wasn't loud submission. It was silent fatigue. And that distinction mattered. Tasha didn't describe a man enjoying chaos. She described a man enduring it. Then she went there.
Her relationship with Bolo, I'm gonna interview Bolo. I feel like Kandi be bringing men and women into the bedroom and Todd just takes it. But I just feel like their bedroom, like, here's the thing. It's like, I'm glad he told her the truth. You need real friends like that. But yeah, but this is their girlfriend wife. They take care of her. She goes everywhere together. They take their kids on trips. That's her. Yeah, she was a part of Real Housewives of Atlanta, I think, as a...
The word takes it echoed longer than the clip itself. Because it didn't sound sexual. It sounded emotional. Like somebody standing in a storm with no umbrella, waiting for weather to pass that never does. And Tasha's implication wasn't that Todd was weak. It was that he was alone inside a crowded marriage. And that kind of loneliness doesn't need proof. It needs recognition. Then the conversation pivoted from arrangement to aftermath. What does it do to a man when his marriage becomes content? When his home becomes a set? When privacy becomes a public subscription? According to Tasha, Todd wasn't failing at the marriage. The marriage was failing him. Not in dramatic shouting scenes, but quietly. Through decisions made without him. Through rules not written by him. Through promises not explained to him. Through additions not chosen by him. And now, allegedly, the exit wasn't explosive. It was inevitable. The audience leaned back. Because this didn't feel like oops. It felt like pressure that built until structure collapsed. Then Tasha drew the line. Not between the girlfriend and the wife. Between the wife and the brand. She reframed everything. This wasn't about love. It was about monetization. According to her narrative, Kandi stopped living privately. Because privacy didn't pay fast enough anymore. And if reality TV had slowed down, then reality had to open itself up wider. Bedroom. Marriage. Conflict. Third parties. All of it turned into content. Cut into pieces. Posted. Branded. Promoted. Subscribed. And when that happens long enough, according to Tasha's warning, the marriage doesn't break. It gets auctioned. Todd's role in her frame wasn't partner anymore. It was prop. And nobody wants to be a husband inside a circus they didn't create. Then came the quietest line of the night. No shouting. No laughing. No sarcasm. Just truth delivered cold. Todd was tired. Not of Kandi. Of the life around her. Of the cameras that never switched off. Of the circus that never packed up. Of being married to a woman who lives for clicks. Of watching his home become a headline. And that fatigue, according to Tasha, was the real filing. Not a court date. A breaking point. Online, the reaction turned from gossip to diagnosis. Fans pulled receipts. Old interviews. Strange facial expressions. Uncomfortable silence on camera. Moments that had once been brushed off as awkward now looked like warning signs. People didn't argue if Todd would leave. They argued how long he'd been emotionally gone. Then Tasha did something strange. She didn't celebrate. She condemned. Not Todd, the system. She framed influence as illness, attention as addiction, clicks as corruption, and warned that when money replaces meaning, everything eventually rots from the inside, including marriage. Finally, she delivered the scariest insight of the night. That Todd and Kandi's possible divorce wasn't an explosion. It was erosion. Years of gravity doing its work silently. And when the break happens, it won't feel sudden. It will feel overdue. Because cracks don't start at court. They start in bedrooms. In silence. In decisions made without you. In seats that go empty emotionally long before they go empty physically. And Tasha ended not with a roast, but with a prophecy. That Kandi didn't fall. She transformed into someone who didn't recognize where entertainment ends and life begins. And Todd? He didn't lose a wife. He lost the version of her that didn't need an audience. And once that version disappears, the marriage follows. Then the screen went dark. No outro music. No laughter. No jokes. Just a feeling that something real had slipped out accidentally on purpose. And the audience knew. This story doesn't end in silence. It ends in filings, distance, damage, and receipts yet to surface. They were asking why everyone went quiet. Because after Tasha K finished, something didn't follow. No denial. No lawsuit. No emergency press tour. No teary live. No carefully edited statement. Just silence. And in celebrity culture, silence doesn't mean peace. It means negotiation. Within hours, Kandi's name stopped trending for jokes and started trending for questions. Why wasn't she responding? Why wasn't Todd posting? Why weren't the blogs pushing back? Why wasn't Bravo doing damage control? According to online observers, this wasn't confusion. This was containment. Because when damage control doesn't go public, it goes private. Lawyers don't tweet. PR teams don't live stream. Crisis managers don't subtweet. They meet. And insiders say that's exactly what started happening. Quietly. Behind locked doors. Not to clap back, but to calculate. Because once the word wife entered the conversation, this stopped being messy. It became dangerous. Statements weren't issued because statements lock you into positions. And positions create records, which create consequences. So instead, the machine did what it always does best when the story is bigger than the image. It paused. And in that pause, the audience filled in the blanks themselves. Fans began dissecting old interviews like court transcripts. Sudden changes in Todd's tone. Moments where Kandi corrected him on camera. Times he looked elsewhere when she spoke. Scenes where tension blinked between smiles. Moments that had once looked like marriage strain now looked like exit planning. Then came the reports. None public. All whispered. That Todd had allegedly been consulting legal counsel long before Tasha ever opened her mouth. That paperwork had been drawn up quietly. That assets were already being assessed. That conversations were happening not around emotion, but around division. Property. Brands. Income streams. Rights. What belongs to who? When the marriage stops belonging to both. Online analysts didn't ask if a lawyer was involved. They asked which one. Because in Hollywood, divorces aren't emotional events. They're negotiations. And the silence felt like documents being drafted. Not apologies. The longer it stayed quiet, the louder it became. Then heads turned. Not to Kandi. Not to Todd. But to the people who had been around the marriage the longest. The inner circle. Because in every public collapse, it's never just two people falling apart. It's an ecosystem losing balance. Friends don't speak. Associates disappear. Family goes quiet. And that quiet speaks volumes. Followers noticed a shift in who stopped showing up. Birthday posts pulled. Tags gone. Supportive comments missing. Group photos archived. A chilling pattern. People weren't unfollowing. They were unfamiliaring. And according to digital detectives, that's the first sign of a social collapse. Not explosive. Gradual. The quiet removal of allegiance. The subtle change in tone. From ride or die to no comment. And when friends don't pick sides publicly, it usually means they've already done so privately. Then came the hardest part. Todd's energy changed. Not online. In posture. In photos. In facial expression. In everything between the frames. Fans swear he looks lighter. Not happier. Lighter. Like someone who's already let go. And that scared people. Because it felt less like divorce energy. And more like surrender. Not a man fighting to hold on. A man preparing to be free. Meanwhile, Kandi went quiet in a different way. Not absent, but controlled. Where there used to be openness, now there was strategy. Where there used to be spontaneity, now there was scripting. According to brand watchers, her presence didn't vanish. It tightened. And that's never random. That's protection. You don't tighten media presence unless there's leak risk. You don't rewrite captions unless there's narrative drift. You don't vanish from live discussions unless the truth is moving faster than you can manage it. And that's exactly what people felt. The story was outpacing the image. Then slowly, the blogs started muting. Not criticizing. Not defending. Reframing. Softening language. Drifting headlines. That's how you know a story is being negotiated off camera. Because when media goes neutral suddenly, it means pressure was applied. And pressure doesn't come from fans. It comes from people with access, power, resources, fear. The internet noticed. And when the internet notices silence, it gets louder. Comment sections became trial courts. Screenshots became evidence. Old clips went viral. Moments that meant nothing yesterday became indictments today. People slowed footage, isolated audio, read lips, compared timelines. And every comparison surfaced the same uncomfortable truth. The issues didn't start last year. They didn't start on Patreon. They didn't start with Tasha. They started when the marriage became content. When the cameras stopped observing and started feeding. Fans began saying what nobody wanted to say. This divorce doesn't feel sudden. It feels scheduled. Then came speculation around contracts, prenups, clauses, exit strategies. No documents hit the public, but rumors hit the bloodstream. Cast agreements, non-disparagement clauses, confidentiality terms, infractions, penalties. Suddenly, fans weren't talking emotionally. They were talking legally, which is always a sign the end is near. Because when relationships hit court language, they're already over. Then the shift in narrative began. Not from Tasha, from the audience. They stopped asking, did she cheat? They began asking, who becomes who after this? Because divorce at this level isn't just separation. It's identity redistribution. What is Kandi without Todd? What is Todd without Kandi? What happens to shows? Brands? Partnerships? Images? Everything has to be reintroduced, repackaged, and sold again. And fans feel that coming, which is why the story feels unfinished. Because the fallout hasn't arrived. The preparation has. Tasha didn't spark chaos. She exposed it. And people know the difference. Chaos is loud. Exposure is quiet. It's the sound of light turning on. And everyone blinking together. The final shock wasn't a post, or a response, or a denial. It was the way nobody rushed to defend. Because when nobody jumps in front of a bullet, it usually means they know it's real. And once that realization sets in, the narrative doesn't die. It mutates into lawsuits, property division, custody rumors, brand warfare, and creative differences, statements that cover emotional warfare. Then insiders started whispering one sentence. Not officially, but consistently. This isn't ending with a filing. This is ending with exposure. And that terrified fans. Because once divorce hits this deep, it never stays just between two people. It drags history behind it. Old wounds resurface. Old receipts reappear. Old decisions unfold. And nobody comes out unchanged. Not Todd. Not Kandi. Not the people who stayed silent. Not the ones who walked away. Not the audience. Because when a celebrity marriage collapses this publicly, the fans don't just watch. They recalibrate. What they admired, what they believed, what they invested emotionally. Everything shifts. Trust breaks differently when it breaks with proof. And the scariest part? This story doesn't feel complete. Because silence isn't the finale. It's the setup. And when someone finally speaks, officially, not socially, it won't sound like gossip. It will sound like legal language pretending not to be. And when that happens, the internet will not react gently. It will react like it always does when a truth finally surfaces unsupervised. Violently, digitally, relentlessly. Then the final thought hung in the air. If everything Tasha claimed was wrong, someone would have stopped her by now. But nobody did. And that might be the loudest evidence of all. Fade to black. No music. Just heartbeats. And a sentence burning in the dark. This wasn't a scandal. This was a separation in real time. And we're only watching the echo. If even half of what was said tonight is true, then this was never about scandal. This was about exposure. Not the kind that trends for 12 hours and disappears. The kind that rots quietly until something collapses from the inside. Because what you just watched wasn't a gossip story. It was a marriage unfolding in public. A house with the lights still on, but nobody home anymore. And when a relationship reaches that stage, there's no dramatic finale. No music. No confession. Just distance disguised as privacy and silence relabeled as strength. So now the real question isn't, is this true? The real question is, why did nobody rush to deny it? Because when lies surface, they're challenged immediately. But when truth slips out unexpectedly, it's managed. If this was fake, somebody would already be fighting back. Instead, there is nothing. No emergency statements. No legal warnings. No outrage. Just absence. And in the world of public image, absence is never accidental. It's strategic. So where does that leave you? Watching the part they didn't plan on you seeing. Hearing what wasn't supposed to be said out loud. And realizing that some stories don't explode. They erode. Until one day, there's nothing left to hold up the image you believed in. If you felt something off while watching this, that wasn't drama. That was recognition. Because some truths don't arrive loudly. They arrive cold. Now tell us what you see. Not what you hope. Not what you want to believe. What you actually see. Drop it in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the moment when silence finally breaks, subscribe. Because this story, it isn't over. It's just been exposed.